was part of the student fees that they took out of everybody who enrolled there.
Mm-hmm.
That money went into diversity type programming.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it provided funding to a lot of different types of student groups.
Yeah.
So, having a lot of free time in college and not necessarily wanting to party all the time,
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of participate and be more social.
Yeah.
So I joined a lot of cultural groups and ended up taking some ethnic study classes.
Uh-huh.
And that stuff made me a lot more aware.
Mm-hmm.
Allowed me to kind of self-diagnose or self-reflect,
Yeah.
What I've gone through
Yeah.
throughout my childhood all the way up to college.
Yeah.
But also kind of have the right ideas in my head
Mm-hmm.
to reflect moving forward in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny. You went into my next question, because can you describe a time or experience when being bicultural was significant or made you especially aware of being bicultural, which was going to college and kind of being exposed to the different groups, and also just like education on, on ethnicity, culture and impact.
Yeah, it was also interesting because it allowed me to meet other minorities as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Oregon State is in this small town called Corvallis.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of farms around. The nearest city is 60 miles away.
Oh.
But it was pretty diverse, and there were so many different ethnic student groups. I mean, I met all these people from the Middle East, and I've never met anyone from the Middle East before. And, these people that I'm meeting now don't match anything that I hear in the news. So, so it's kind of neat to kind of be the insider in the way that, I'm Asian American and I'm a minority, but also to meet other people who are more of a minority than I am, because there's less people that represent them.
Yeah.
So, being in that environment in college allowed me to kind of view things at different angles.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, I thought I was going through some interesting experiences being a minority, but man, when I met all these ethnicities from the Middle East, they're more of a minority than I am.
Right.
And the stereotypes and struggles that they deal with are not anywhere close to being as bad as the ones that I deal with.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was able to give me a lot of perspective.
Yeah. And it really challenges our own biases and assumptions. You know what I mean? Especially with what we grew up with, so I think that's amazing. Can you recall a time when you felt another person saw you or treated you as a stereotype of a Vietnamese Asian person?
Well, throughout friends, it's just kind of the way that we joke.
Mm-hmm.
So, we kind of, some of those stereotypes we, fulfill.
Uh-huh.
There's a reason why they're stereotypes. And, between friends, we always poke and fun at those stereotypes because, we all share them.
Yeah.
So that, that's one way stereotypes kind of impact my life. But the other way is also people outside my ethnic group superimposing these stereotypes on me. So there's a lot of assumptions that I'm good at math, and even though I'm in banking, I'm not very good at math at all. I rely on Excel spreadsheets to do everything for me.
Yeah.
Or everyone assumes that I'm super fluent in different types of languages, and that's not the case. Yeah, so I've always been in situations where people make a lot of assumptions, and they're wrong.
Yeah. How do you usually deal with that? Like when people do make comments like that. For example, that I'm, the being good at math. Let's say have you ever gone to a situation where you're at work or whatever it is, and something comes up, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you do it? It's a math problem." Have you ever encountered something like that?
Absolutely. I would say that when I was younger, that was something that I would just shrug off and just kind of ignore. after, going through college and being adult and being more aware of issues that, my ethnic group faces, that I think having, educated conversations are very important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that ignorance, isn't deliberate. They're not meant to be hurtful.
Right.
So, instead of viewing that as a really negative thing and being offended, a lot of times, depending on the situation, I may take it as an opportunity to have a conversation, use it as a teaching moment. And, some of those conversations that I've had, people have thanked me for it. They're like, oh, I never knew, or, hey, I've never thought about it that way. And so it makes me feel really good walking away from that.
That's good.
Because had I never had that conversation with them,
Right.
it could have been something that they'd taken with them to another situation, and someone may have felt the same way that I had felt.
Yeah, definitely. No, I like that a lot. Do you ever feel like these certain experiences where someone is saying something of a stereotype, does it ever impact your sense of identity or sense of self?
Not at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in my life, I'm pretty confident who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, when I was younger, it definitely impacted my life because, when you're younger and trying to shape your identity and being confident in who you are, you're trying to develop that identity. And, when people are, applying negative stereotypes to you, it feels like almost like you don't belong and you feel like you're left out. And sometimes you're like, why can't I be like everyone else?
Yeah, definitely. Was there ever a time where you felt like you didn't belong somewhere or you didn't belong at all?
So I would say grade school,
Uh-huh.
lunchtime, my mom would always pack me lunches because we couldn't necessarily afford for me to have school lunch every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my mom would usually pack me leftovers and kids would make fun of what I eat and say gross things. And, and I told my mom and she's like, well, we can't afford to get you lunch every day. So you can eat it or you can be hungry.
Yeah, that's hard. That's super hard. And then you question yourself like, oh God, like, why, why me kind of thing.
Yeah. Actually, I ended up eating strawberry jam sandwiches like every day for 2 years because of that.
Really? Wow. Yeah. So it caused you to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way that I would experience that is just, I'm so ashamed of what my family eats that I'm willing to eat, something that's, not of that I would like every day because of that. Yeah.
It was something that I asked my mom, like, I just want bread and jam. And she was like, okay, that's easier to make than anything I can make. And so we did it for a long time.
Yeah.
Now I hate strawberry jam.
Yeah. That's okay. I don't blame you for that. Okay. Can you describe a time or experience when you felt discriminated against for being Vietnamese?
Discriminated against. I wouldn't say I've ever been discriminated.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I've had Vietnamese people who weren't immigrants or who were newly immigrants treat me differently because I'm American born.
Okay.
So I would say that I've received more discrimination from that group.
Interesting.
Throughout my life than directly from like a Caucasian group.
What I can relate to that. So what kinds of things like have been said or done that would make you feel like they were discriminating against you?
Part of it, some of it is just feeling, kind of I would feel excluded from different things. At that time growing up, my Vietnamese language wasn't very great. And so they knew that and they would speak in the language even though